Take a class, not just because it has 7 hours and that's what you need, but because it's actually something you want to learn and need to learn for your work. Focused education is important.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out once again in the podcast chair. Can't wait to introduce my guest who's hiding in the wings right now. But first, I want to remind you that we're sponsored by a couple of great companies. Of course, Alamode is the company that I've been using for my write-ups on my residential appraisal reports for a very long time. You should be as well. Check them out by going to alamode.com or 800 Alamode. And of course, OREP is my E&O of choice, and they have been a sponsor of this program from the very beginning. Check them out. They've got some great benefits, folks. It's orep.org. That's orep.org. I want to welcome back to the program a good friend, Mr. Joshua Walitt. Joshua, welcome back, my friend.
Good to be back. Good to be back. Thanks for having me here. I'm always excited to be on your cast here.
Oh, good. Well, I'm always excited to see you. I love seeing you in person. It's been too long, my friend.
Yes, yeah, we'll have to catch up at some conference.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll be at a couple this year, thankfully, and excited to possibly bump into you and grab a drink together. So, Joshua Walitt is the principal consultant for Walitt Solutions. He provides short and long-term consulting services related to valuation, education, review, investigations. He is the designer of the Market Machine, which everyone should check out. He is an SRA and an AIRRS and a USPAP instructor. Before we dive into this, Joshua, tell us a little bit about the Market Machine. You were on my program, and actually we created a webinar together where we talked about regression analysis, and of course the Market Machine was part of that. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so the Market Machine is a real, in basic terms, it's a souped up Excel sheet, really. It has a lot of macros, has a lot of buttons, so you're not dragging columns over, you're not sorting things manually and things like that. So what it does is you use your local MLS export, and then it started out as just what it sounds, a market machine. It did market analysis, or it helped you do the market analysis. So you're looking at the trends, you're looking at the days on market, you're looking at the price per unit, you're looking at how many new construction and how many REO and short sale, all this stuff. And then then I took a look at regression. I added a module on regression in there as either you can look at it sort of as a starting point for supported adjustments. You can also use it as testing the model against comps and things. And so I won't get into lots of details there, but really it hits on a lot of your development points in your appraisal process, especially for residential appraisers. So appraisers across the country have purchased it, taken a look at it, and used it in their appraisal. So it gives a lot of different attachments that you can put onto your reports for market support, as well as, again, having that work file for additional support on adjustments. So
I think, with what's going on in the world right now, all the changes, the modernization, if you will, of the appraisal industry, the valuation industry, things like that are so important. Tools, if you will. Talk to us about that. What types of tools should appraisers be using currently that maybe has changed in the last few years, or at least has become more important?
Well, I think you make a good point. When you're talking about modernization, you go right to the tools the appraisers use. So many times right now, when we're talking about modernization, it's this buzzword. And modernization is meant to use meant to mean data collectors. That's the modernization happening at the GSEs. Totally legitimate. Yes, that's modernization. That's change. Great. But really, from the appraiser's standpoint, we need to be focusing on not the data collection necessarily, although, I was teaching a class yesterday and they were talking about their clipboard. Okay, that's a piece of modernization we can do.
Sure.
And we were actually talking, it was a little off topic, but we went there for about 30 seconds. And we were talking, okay, go to a device because you can actually eliminate almost all of that desk work when you get back. So just having digital inspections.
Mm.
Other tools, there's a lot of tools. I'm not going to try to, recommend any that are out there. We all see them. We can Google them. We can
Sure.
take a look at our software stores and things and see what they integrate with. There are a lot out there for market analysis, for adjustment support, for showing fact-based, data-based, statistics-based conclusions. And even though that's what we should be doing and should have been doing all along, we can show something beyond paired sales. All right. Paired sales are great. You put two sales together, you can come to conclusions. That's great. But when you put 200 sales together or 50 sales together and come to some statistical conclusions, that's even stronger. And so we can support our conclusions better, and we can do it many times more efficiently. And I would even say modernization isn't just the tools, but it's the approach to your work. It's the approach in your office, having a team approach. So I still do see comments online where people say, hey, I know you're talking about data entry by, some assistant doing data entry. I can type it really fast. Well, but you could also be getting to dinner on time if you didn't do that. Or you could also have half of Friday off. I encourage people more and more now, don't just look at how much more production you can have, but look at the quality of life you can have. Okay. Amen. So maybe you are making a little bit less money, but you have half day Friday off because that's what you wanted. If that's what you want, maybe that's not your goal. Maybe you're at a different place in life, right? So having an approach where you're not doing all the scheduling. Don't tell me scheduling takes you 1 minute. It doesn't take you 1 minute. It takes days sometimes, right? And it haunts you, and you have to keep revisiting it. You can have someone do that, and they're not working at the same rate you're working, right? You're producing at a higher rate. So the modernization touches on so many pieces. And so if we're doing it the way we were 3 years ago or 20 years ago, there's probably something we can work on. And that's actually what we work with clients. We work on the technical piece, the mechanics of appraisal, but then we also look at the workflow and the office, because sometimes that's actually what's holding us back. We know how to do the methods, do the techniques, do the analyses. Maybe we can make it a little more efficient, but really sometimes it's, I don't need to press all the buttons. Why am I pressing all the buttons? Why am I looking at this? Why am I searching for this is a good example. Why am I searching for all the sales in the subdivision myself? That should be a standard search that happens when the order is created and it is provided to me, the appraiser. Why would I do that? That is a repeat search that can happen over and over and over. Now I work in, my coverage area, rural as well as small town and small city. So obviously subdivision doesn't work in every case. And those are more complex. But if it's in a subdivision, why am I pulling that up? Why am I typing in the first search conducted was the subdivision? It resulted in this many sales. Someone should be typing that into my report for me and providing me the printout of what the search results were with the search criteria, so I can see they did the job right. So there's a lot to modernization, right? I know people always talk about the dentist, and you have the, how often do you see the dentist? It's kind of like that, but just make it your own. You need to make what works for you, but you can probably do some work on your office.
I love where you're going with this, Joshua, because, the big, as you said, the buzzword right now is appraisal modernization. When we say modernization, we're talking about Fannie Mae, we're talking about the GSEs, we're talking about the big banks, right? The changes that are occurring, and more it becomes important that you are, quote unquote, modernizing your office, right? I say this often, you don't have a lot of control over the macro. You should be involved, right? You're a member of the NAA, get involved out there, get political, talk to your representatives, make sure that these crazy laws that they're passing, that your voice is heard. But in the end, those decisions are made on a high level. You don't have a whole lot of control over that, but you have every bit of control over your office.
That's exactly right. We have control over over how we work. We have control over how we communicate. I talk to appraisers a lot about communication. Talking to the homeowner, especially, complaints come from homeowners. We are seeing complaints or reports or letters sent in from Fannie Mae and stuff. Again, we can't really influence that policy so much because they believe they're police, they have that sort of policing. They see high level big problems. That's what they're reporting. We can, of course, control the quality of our reports, so it's not sort of caught in that net. But we can control that communication with homeowners who do submit complaints, right? Or all of them, but obviously some of them may submit complaints. So, if they're understanding what our job is from day one, sometimes that helps alleviate misunderstandings when the report comes out, right? If you tell them, this is what I do, this is what I'm going to do. Now, no, we're not talking about confidential.
Right.
We're not talking about anything there. We're talking about, this is the process. This was the first step, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. The inspection, now I know, what your house is all about. Thanks for all the information, right? Hopefully we ask them lots of questions, so it gives them a good impression of, we want a lot of information about their property. We want accurate representation of what their property is. And then we say, I'm going to go back and I'm sort of at the mercy of the market. So I'm looking at what sales have occurred that are similar to your property. And that's really what the client's asking me for is what would the market pay for your house, right? And so I'm already putting them off this misunderstanding that we know is out there. We see that now, that, it's what I would pay or what I think. It's not about what I think. It's about what the market thinks, right? And we can instill that in them. And as a matter of fact, you mentioned the NAA, the National Association of Appraisers, and I am the president. And one of the first initiatives I took up, and we have a final draft of this right now. It is an information sheet for homeowners. It's a two-sided sheet, and it speaks layman. It doesn't speak USPAP. It doesn't speak appraiser. It talks about confidentiality in a way they understand. What can we talk to you about? What can't we? Why? Right? It talks to them about what a sales comparison approach in everyday language, brief. It takes about 3 minutes to read the entire sheet. And this is something that can be given to agents. It can be given to homeowners. And so encouraging that communication so they know, if you call me up in 2 weeks, I can't talk to you about specifics, but boy, if I get that call, I better talk to them somewhat, right? I better talk to them about general appraisal practice. I better tell them, this is what went into any appraisal, right? And if you have specific questions, I'd be happy to answer it. But you got to talk to your loan officer. It's just the way they ordered the appraisal, right? So part of I think of it as pre-fighting the complaint is being an accessible professional. And being open to conversation that is still within our standards, not violating confidentiality, but not totally setting someone off to where it's like, what a jerk. This person wouldn't say anything to me. They wouldn't talk to me or anything. So that communication is key. Agents, homeowners, all of this, asking questions, really, really valuable, not only to our process, but just to that credibility, seeing us as a human who's really trying to do a good job and they understand what our job is.
I love it. Yeah, we're talking with Joshua Walitt of Walitt Solutions. Joshua, when we get back, I want to talk a little bit more about this topic. The educational component is important. The tools are important, but I know you do a lot of consulting and helping appraisers to kind of prepare. I like the pre-fighting. I like that that they need to put into their report so that they can avoid as much of this as possible. I want to dig a little bit more into that. But first, I want to pause and remind everybody about some great companies. First of all, what are you using on the tool side to help you to be a better appraiser? Do you ever think about your report writing software as being a tool to help you to be better? Think about this for just a second. What is built into your report writing software? Are there tools that make it easier, more efficient, and increase the quality at the same time? Alamode is that company for me. Check them out by going to alamode.com, or you can call them at 800-ALAMODE. Of course, if you do get yourself in trouble, it's important to have somebody in your back pocket that's got your back. For me, that is OREP Insurance. OREP has been there for me on several occasions when I have needed their services. And when I haven't needed their services, they're there with great benefits. Check them out by going to their website and click on the benefits tab. It's orep.org is where you can find out more. That's OREP.org. And welcome back to the program, everybody. Hanging out with my good friend, Mr. Joshua Walitt, the president of the NAA. I apologize, I didn't say that up front. I said you were a member, but I had heard that recently. Craig Morley actually told me that you were crowned the president. That's quite a role, man. Tell me how your life has changed with that.
Well, it does keep me busy. We really need to keep a pulse on what's happening, what's being brought to us by our clients. I'll say it that way, right? We like to, as you said, take a look at the macro and the micro. What can we control? What can we influence? And we have to take an honest look at what are our clients asking us, right? Any profession needs to say, okay, what's expected of us from our clients, and we need to respond to that. One of my key initiatives is getting information out. So we've ramped up getting emails out to our members, whether it's a Fannie Mae update, whether it's a regulatory update, whether it's an article that we found that is useful, whatever it is, because I find there's a lot of misinformation. There is so much misinformation out there, and if we take the time to take a look at the selling guide, if we take time to look at the HUD handbook, if we take time to look at regulations and statutes, we can learn a lot and we can know it for ourselves. And I always tell people, go to the source, read it. All right. It may be 1,000 pages, but you only need to read about half a page for a particular issue. So go to the source. So information, recognizing that appraisers are all different. We all have different specialties. We all have different preferences. We all have different business models, and recognizing we're all appraisers and we can have respect for each other. That's another important initiative and message that I'm trying to get out. And then communication with the public, which we talked about already. Really, that's the third initiative. Is we need to recognize there's a lot of misunderstanding about what appraisers do. We need to educate the public on that. We need to educate, in some case, regulators on that. Yeah. And get the truth out there, get the facts out there about what an appraiser does, what an appraiser doesn't do, what their methods are, what their methods aren't, and so on. So that's really been my focus. Keeps me busy, but we've got a good board, we've got good membership, we've got a lot of good committees and committee members. So we're out there doing some good volunteer work out there.
I love that. I love that you said sometimes we need to educate the regulators. Sometimes we think that they're the boss, they're knowledgeable. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't know what they're talking about, or maybe they do know what they're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, just yesterday, Joshua, I have to tell you a funny story. We in the office that I work in, I have an opportunity to deal with a lot of different appraisers, and one of the appraisers had done something within a report, an FHA report, and he had gotten a revision back from the client, and had asked, please do this, please do that. There was like 3 or 4 things, right? And number 3 was in direct violation of the new standards when it comes to FHA. And he asked another individual. We communicate on Slack, and I kind of watch these channels. But he asked another individual within the office, "Hey, what should I do with this? Because I'm pretty sure I'm right." And the answer that came back was, "Please write this to them. Please remove revision number 3 as it complies directly with FHA's new policy," and then cited the policy. I thought, sometimes you got to educate those that think they know, but they may not know.
That's so true. And part of that is we need to know it for sure first, right? And so that's why, having good education, having good training, going to the source, reading the actual source material that sets the assignment conditions in some cases, taking classes that are more than just fulfilling a number, right? Take a class, not just because it has 7 hours and that's what you need, but because it's actually something you want to learn and need to learn for your work. Focused education is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you've talked a little bit about educating the homeowner. Sometimes you got to educate the realtor. Sometimes you got to educate the regulator. Can I be blunt for just a second, Joshua?
You always are.
I might. That's true. Why am I even asking permission? So this is what I have seen over the last little bit. And I'm going to let's call it 7 years. Okay. I'm just throwing out a number. In the last 7 years, I have seen that what worked for appraisers in the past, and let's just, again, this is me just being blunt, laying it on the table, and someone would say, well, it's never worked. You've always had to support your adjustments. You've always had to. I mean, we've been able to get away with a lot in the past, meaning this. I do think that there is something to be said about your knowledge in the marketplace, being here for 20 years, understanding how things work. In other words, you kind of just know that 2,500 is a pretty good adjustment for a fireplace, right? And I'm just throwing stuff out, willy-nilly. But the point is, you do it enough and you kind of just know it. And we get in trouble when we stand before a state board and say, well, yeah, that's what I've always done. And that's, that's my market expertise. And 30 years in the market tells me that $2,500 is again, never was it okay, but it kind of was okay in the past. It's not okay anymore, is it?
It's really not. It's really not. It never was okay. It's certainly not okay now. I agree with kind of how you've outlined that. So we need, first of all, technology gives us an advantage now. We have the human brain that can look at this quick, repeat, controlled by us analysis with all these tools. As long as we know the basic of how this tool is working, we don't need to program it. We just need to know how generally what the concepts are. We need to use the technology. Everything, the entire space is going to pass us by if we're not using technology to get better analytics. And we need to get away from, I will just say, I hate the science versus art argument. This has never been an art. You talk about, I don't like that because it breaks down our credibility. We are interpreting market data, of course, but it has to be based on market data. It's not an art. It is a science. It is a statistics job. We are taking a look at what is the market saying about this characteristic, this type of property, this type of site size, this type of fill in the blank, right? So we need to do that. We don't need to reinvent the wheel on every assignment either. So we can have what I like to call a master work file. We have a jumping off point of all the research we already conducted. If I've worked in the Southeast area and I've already come up with 2 or 3 methods relating to adjustments for garage or square footage or what have you, that's a good jumping off point. It may not be perfectly applicable to this property, but it's a jumping off point and I can do more research. I can save that research, right? I call it my library. I actually have an Excel spreadsheet, say what area, what's the characteristic, what method, and then I save the PDFs that show all my chicken scratch and all my analytics. And I can then refer to it. I can have my assistant also pull and say, okay, Josh, here's what we have for that type of property. Here's what we have for that area. So now I know, well, how much extra work, how much additional analysis am I having to put into this? So we can't just go by rule of thumb. When people say, but I have a lot of experience, that's wonderful. What we have to be able to do is point to the experience that we're talking about.
I love it.
We can't just say it's in my head somewhere. No other profession does that, right? Doctor doesn't just say, well, I'm prescribing this because I think it's nice. They say because there's this data that backs it up. Right. And there's this science behind it. So it's not the science in the same way, obviously, but we deal in statistics, they deal in the chemicals and whatnot, but it's the same idea there. So we really have to move from that supported development. And then the key, you mentioned revisions, is, and I'll make this quick, having a good template. So it is a story with headings, right, that you visit the same thing, because right now it is absolutely critical that we show the consistent process that we followed in every assignment. It's not going to be identical, but it's a consistent visiting the same steps. And so we talk about the searches, we talk about the results, we talk about why we selected comps, we talk about why we left the subdivision, we talk about the methods that we use. We don't have to spell out all the math, but we talk about the methods we used and the rationale for adjustments. And then we talk about, why did we go high, low within that range for our final reconciliation or what have you. So that's we need to react to what is expected of us, right? And it has changed over 20, 30, 40 years. And that's the same with any profession. Everything has changed over 20, 30, and 40 years.
I love it. Yeah, I can imagine an appraiser sitting back listening to Joshua talk and think, yeah, this guy knows his stuff. I want to know more. I know you do some consulting. You help individuals both when maybe when they've got in trouble with the state board, maybe before they get in trouble with the state board. How can people find you? Tell us a little bit about your services and how people can find you, Joshua.
Yeah, they can go right to Walitt.com. It's WALITT.com. They can Google me as well. And so, we do help a lot of people just in a mentoring or coaching way before they ever have a problem. People say, you know what, I really need you to look at my template. What's wrong in it? I haven't looked at it in 10 years, or, oh my gosh, I've changed it so much over 10 years. I don't know what's going on with it. Or we look at some sample reports. So we sort of problem solve beforehand. We also have a procedures manual that we then work with the client and customize for their office if they're looking to work through it or add assistants or add trainees and things like that. But then we do help if there are problems. If there are problems with a state complaint, we assist. We, of course, are not attorneys, but we have me as well as other consultants who can help take a look at the state documentation, take a look at their documentation, help them problem solve and coordinate with attorneys and other parties.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, but when, folks. If you're in this industry long enough, you're going to have one of those situations, and Joshua's a great guy to have in your back pocket. Walitt.com, WAL, just one L, I, two T's, WALITT.com. Thank you, Joshua. Really appreciate you coming on, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Dustin.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.